So we're continuing with Matthew and his parables of Jesus. And I wonder if the disciples were saying, oh no, not another parable. You know, I doubt that it was all strung together as it is written here in Matthew as they're walking down the road. Well, here's a parable, here's another parable, here's another parable. No, that's not the way Jesus would teach. But they're very conveniently put together in the Gospel of Matthew. And so for the last several weeks, we've been hearing parables. Today's parables are very well known when we talk about the treasure buried and the pearl of great price. Now, the first thing is, well, what would be treasure to us? What's treasure? And, you know, many times we think about things that are valuable and money. And of course, there's so many jokes about money. You know, money doesn't bring happiness, but it sure makes misery bearable. You know, or Groucho Marx said, you know, money is only good to buy things. And since I can't do anything, money's quite handy. Okay, that's really fine. But what is our treasure? What is our treasure? What do we value? And what would we be willing to sacrifice for? And I look at a lot of parents here, and I think parents know what that is. Do anything for your children. You sacrifice anything, you do anything at all. Your children are your treasure. I remember many years ago, we were vacationing down in the Jersey Shore, and one day it was raining, so we decided just to walk along the boardwalk, and we stopped in one of the arcades there, the big arcade with lights and colors and so on. And I was holding then my little girl by my hand, and we were looking at different things. And for an instant, she let go of my hand. And a moment later, I looked around and I couldn't find her. What went through me was horror. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and a few minutes later, I found her looking at some other attraction and laughing and giggling. Well, she was fine, but I wasn't. I realized what my treasure is. I would do anything for my little girl. We have that here in our own life. What is our treasure? Now, I also remember being, you know, down in the beaches along the East Coast and hearing about pirate treasure and thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if we dug up pirate treasure? And we would say, well, finders keepers. But that's not the way it was in the Hebrew world. In the Hebrew world, treasure on someone else's property, even though you find it, is not your property. You can't just say finders keepers. So in the Hebrew world, you need to own that property in order to dig up that treasure and claim it for your own. So that's why we have the story, that he found the treasure and then buried it again and went and put together enough resources to buy that piece of property. It makes little sense to us in this day and age. We just dug it up and kept it, I suppose. But no, the purpose of the story is to ask you, what would you do to find that treasure? What would you do for the pearl of great price? So what's Jesus' point here? Well, for him, it's the kingdom of heaven. What is so valuable to us, more than our families, more than our own life? And it was wonderful that Solomon, in today's reading, says to God, give me wisdom. And God is pleased with that answer. I'm pleased that you didn't ask for riches, for long life, for the lives of your enemies. And I will give you this wisdom that no one has ever seen and no one will ever see after you. So I ask for this wisdom, or some wisdom, to know what treasure is. And treasure in this sense is meant an abundance of gifts in the kingdom of heaven. An abundance of gifts. And the pearl is symbolic of the beauty of heaven. So now the question is put to us. What would you do to acquire heaven? The treasure, the pearl. What is it that we are willing to do for heaven? We know what we are willing to do for our families. And Jesus says that heaven, that his relationship with Jesus is more important than anything else on earth. What are we willing to do for that? And that's a hard question. And I know that I've been given the vocation of marriage, of parenthood, of the diaconate, and I am blessed to have those vocations. You all have been given vocations. You are all called to be Christians. What are you willing to do for the treasure? What are you willing to do for the pearl of great price? Only you can answer that question. Amen.